Morning, everybody. Absolutely delighted to be here and joining you for this morning's presentation, and just briefly sharing with you the agenda and outline of the presentation itself. I'll be going through NCSE fundamentals, the leadership approaches, the cultural developments we've been progressing in the organisation over the last 2 years or so, giving you an update in terms of current developments, and then taking and picking up some of the concepts discussed by previous speakers this morning in the sense of belonging and what that actually means within the context of the Irish education system. Just to share some thoughts with Deborah from her presentation in terms of the commissioning of research into the impact of frontline services. That was actually quite a brave thing for the NCSE to actually do in 2022. And it's perhaps appropriate to put it in the context of the development and evolution of the organisation in that time frame. Fergal alluded to at this morning's introduction and welcome that the NCSE is indeed 20 years, been founded in 2003, and then this year celebrating our 20th. And tremendous contributions in one facet or another to the support of special education delivery in this country. 2017 providing a wonderful opportunity for the organisation in the sense of strengthening the impact of frontline service delivery to schools with the amalgamation of 3 support services in the form of the Special Education Support Service, the Visiting Teacher Support Service, the National Behaviour Support Service. And in recent times then with the adoption of the school inclusion model to the organisation. But just to share with you and recap again some of the figures that Fergal alluded to this morning, and Deborah also alluded to them, in the sense of the increased activity within special education development and profile in this country. And again, 44% increase from 2018, the number of special education teachers in the system, an 81% increase in special needs assistants, currently coming close to 22,000. This September there will be this September next year there'll be 23,000 SNAs in the system. A doubling of administrative applications in terms of transport and assistive technology, just to mention, and the spiralling growth and profile in the number of special classes, and indeed the growth of special schools in this country, with roughly 16 new special schools opened in the last 3 years. Now, the one statistic that has remained static in all of that are the staffing numbers for the NCSE, roughly plateauing at the 230 mark, notwithstanding that exponential growth in special education activity. So it does offer some rationale, some explanation for some of the findings, and the findings are stark and ones that we couldn't actually ignore within the context of the NCSE. So the staffing were some answers, but they weren't all the answers, as I'll now share with you. Ultimately, before I go show with you and share with you the changes and developments within the organisation, I'm going to take a few brief moments sharing with you our leadership approach embedded right throughout the organisation, and one that we're continually trying to strengthen and empower. In a sense, a leadership framework with 3 connecting attributes to it. Very much expanding on the theme this morning that within inclusion is the whole context of collaboration and our emphasis on extensive stakeholder engagement right across the education ecosystem. Ultimately, the strengthening, the fine-tuning each aspect of the culture of the organisation, and then a relentless focus on the delivery of results right throughout the school. Each of the 4,000 plus schools and families that we're privileged to work with and support in this country. Just in terms of culture development, there's a multifaceted prong approach to it. It's obviously about a condensing and a clear articulation of our values, the values that excite us and enable us day in, day out to do enriching, rewarding, and at times challenging work we do. Then an overview of the strategy, structure and systems that they support the work of the organisation. But ultimately, as we've seen from this morning's presentations, it is down to the quality of relationships, the quality of staff that we have throughout the organisations, their skill set and their styles of engagement. Fortunately, as Fergal has alluded to this morning, central government did listen kindly to us and did acknowledge that the staffing resources within the organisation needed boosting, needing enriching, so that we could respond adequately to the expanding needs of special education in this country. So we had to take a baseline review where we were in December of 2022, and then we had to ask ourselves real serious questions. Well, a very significant investment now into the organisation. What can we do with this? What can we achieve with this in 10 to 15 years' time? So we did a baseline review. We looked ahead in terms of a vision for the organisation, and then asked ourselves, well, what skill set, what staffing complement do we need to put in place with a view to delivering on that vision? There was a number of design principles that stood the test of time with us over the last 2 years as we walked through it. First of all, we're a national agency. That's quite a significant remit. It means our service delivery in Donegal has to be the same in West Cork or East Waterford as it is in inner city Dublin, Cork or Galway. So our services had to be the same consistency and standard. And that meant there had to be systemic thinking and constancy of purpose in terms of we set out our support structures for students, families and schools. We wanted to drive an inclusive education system. The only way you can do that, as you see from the benefit this morning, is when there's a close alignment and integration between research, policy and practice. As an organisation, we knew we weren't going to reach perfection, but that didn't stop us from continuously improving our support structures right throughout the organisation. And ultimately, we wanted to become an employer of choice, that the most dynamic, most enthusiastic staff joined the organisation, and more importantly, wanted to continue working with us. Key to that, of course, was that we were actually engaging with, first of all, our schools, school leaders right around the country, individual visits to schools, and again, the feedback dovetailed with some of the findings that Deborah has presented to us. And again, it was about the quality of relationships with frontline staff, in particular the CNO. But the loud, clear message right across the country was get back into our schools, get to know our children, get to know our families, and get to know our schools. Fix the SNA review process. Also fix this exceptional review process for special education teachers within schools, and have an integrated, consistent practice. And again, those messages were coordinated and consistent the length and breadth of this country. We also listened carefully internally to our own staff. Key messages came back again that dovetailed with what we were hearing from schools. And again, get the focus back on children, families and schools. Reinvigorate, strengthen the heart and soul of the organisation. All of these findings, as we know from, as we were at management level within the organisation, completely dovetail with the findings that Deborah and Lisa have shared with us. In terms of the relationships, being the first and foremost to be prioritised in terms of our working with schools and families. The importance of face-to-face contact, the importance of the quality of engagement with the people we're privileged to work with within this country. And again, the essence of sustained contact with people we work with. It had to be built on trust, and it had to be built on an empowering sense of trying to do the very best for young students in school community care and parents that we're working with. Equally, the messages from schools, in particular in relation to the bureaucratic burden, had to be listened to, and we had to look at a collaborative, joined-up thinking approach within the organisation. In tandem with that, extensive direction, guidance and support came from council, many council members with us today, in terms of revisiting our strategy statement, and again, a bold statement in terms of developing a world-class inclusive education system for Ireland. Well, that then posed the significant question to the NCSE of how does a national agency develop and deliver a world-class inclusive education system. That ultimately means we have to be a world-class inclusive support service ourselves, and that meant, again, serious questions for us. It meant we had to go back to basics and unravel every facet of the organisation and ensure that every role and responsibility within the organisation was very much aligned to what we ultimately want to deliver as our vision. And that meant that we had to look at a realignment of our frontline services. We also had to extend our special skill set coming into the organisation. And that we did with our Pillar 1, which I'll expand in detail in a couple of moments. And we had to superimpose that with all of the various facets. The NCSE that was formed 20 years ago is very different from the needs of the organisation, and again, the needs of the organisation that evolve and grow over the next 10 to 15 years. We had to make sure that each of those activities were covered within the reorganisation structure across the 5 pillars of the organisation. I'm delighted to confirm to various speakers that were raising queries in relation to our workforce. This time last year, we had a workforce of 65 CNOs. There were 65 staff who were entrusted with the responsibility primarily of opening 400 special classes right around the country, and then tendering to the immense demand placed upon them. As of this September, we have 120 staff in place, drawn right across the skill set, predominantly coming from the schooling backgrounds, school leadership experience, immense special school experience, joining the workforce as well. That's also complemented. We've 3 or 4 nurses with us. We've also speech and language therapists joining us within our senior workforce, because we want a multifaceted, dynamic workforce within the senior workforce itself. We've also doubled a number of special education teacher advisors to be working closely with schools, enhancing the delivery and support of special education in schools. We've also, the message was, get into schools, get to know the schools. Instead of having 10 team managers around the region, we now have 20 team managers, so that there's an intimate knowledge of each schooling community built up. That's faceted, of course, with what Deborah is saying in terms of close communication. And already we've been in intensive communication with schools, identifying who the local CNO is, contact details for CNOs being indicated on a frequent, regular basis. So it begs the question, so what? That's the basic stuff. You've done all of that. What can you really do to drive on towards that inclusive education system? Because we've had in extra staff, does that just mean bigger teams, lesser pressures? Are we asking serious questions of ourselves as an organisation? What does a world-class inclusive education system mean? And what does that mean for the value set that's been embedded and strengthened right down throughout the organisation? And what does it mean in terms of improved metrics of success for the organisation? And what does it mean in terms of quality for the organisation? As an organisation, our service starts and stops with the quality of service that we provide to students, families and schools. That means we must have the highest impeccable quality service standards with students, families and schools that we're privileged to work with. We have to be high standards in terms of empathy, in the sense we listen carefully, travel the journey with parents. We're responsive, we're reliable, we're assurance, and we're accountable at every level for the range of services that we apply. It meant that we have to integrate the whole range if we're integrating policy, research, and practice. It means each of the 6 teams in terms of frontline delivery, curriculum and education, therapy, autism and behaviour, professional learning, and sensory. Each of those have to be integrated, fully integrated, and again, under the collective umbrella of the highest standards of quality service. It means with each and every schooling community in this country, close to 4,100 of them, we have a direct strategic engagement with them. We're getting to know the schools, and these schools are happening progressively in the last 7 or 8 weeks, and now commencing again before the Christmas term. And again, it is about building up our profile of the learning needs of schools, building up that relationship with schools, again, getting to know the schools, getting to know the challenges within schools, ultimately leading to knowing the families and the young children, and taking on board whatever their concerns they share with us. But senior engagement with schools isn't just about special class planning. It's also about offering any advice and support that's required, and we have quite an extensive range of professional development programs covering whole aspect of the various facets of special education support in our schools, whether it is from transitions to teaching and learning methodologies and strategies in the classroom, to leadership supports and inputs, and again, our professional training covers and extends to that. Of course, we have a specific remit with special schools, and they will have a whole range of training requirements that we're working in collaboration with them, and just sharing some of those with you in terms of understanding autism and complex needs, whole range of intervention techniques and evolving approaches to behaviour management. The big difference, and Deborah's alluded to, in terms of cultural shift, we worked fundamentally with schools prior to this. Our frontline staff, our seniors, had a caseload of schools. They now have a caseload of parents. And that will mean that we're working directly with parents, getting to know their young children, and travelling the full distance with them and fully supporting them. Complementing that, of course, is a whole range of stakeholder engagements. And there, with the new circular that has come out that many of you are familiar with, that's supported in collaboration with a whole range of parental webinars, with the National Parents Council, with the vast array of advocacy groups that we work with, and of course complemented with school management briefings and direct patron engagements right across the whole landscape of school management. We had to take on board the key messages that were coming through on a variety of fronts in terms of disjointed, disconnected, the SNA exceptional review processes, the special education teacher review processes. Again, they weren't fit for purpose. We had to very much take on board and look at how we were going to address the deficiencies. We'd ask ourselves very hard questions as an organisation. What methodology could we avail of with a view to strengthening our processes and support provision? And we had to look again to European and international fields, particularly in the application of total equality management, a methodology that's well familiar within the higher educational landscape, and we had to uniquely apply it to our own context of a special education support agency. And again, that involved a whole range of intricate process developments. And it was asking about the essential questions, what, why, and how, but putting a methodological framework around that in terms of that we could completely analyse the peculiarities. Why weren't certain processes working for the schools we were enabled to work with, and how did we go about improving it? And if you want to fix something, and it was mentioned several times this morning, you go back to the school, trust the schools to tell us in terms of how to fix the process for them. Then develop and devise the process around them. Go back to them again and see, have we got the process right for them? And they're the basic principles in which we did go about defining, refining those two particular processes in terms of special education teacher review, the exception review process for SNA, that were annoying the schools beyond damage as such, and again, an element that we had to rectify. Just to share with you, we are very conscious there was a baseline that we had to take on board from Deborah's and Lisa's research, and again, we had to get out there to the schools as they were asking us to do, and again, some review from you there in terms. I've had two face-to-face meetings and numerous telephone calls with my CNO. And again, that's the very essence of the challenge, of the opportunity for repairing the organisation that the benefit of the Frontline Commission research gave us in terms of going at it. Again, another feedback there, again, in terms of building trust, enhancing a relationship. Our new CNO is so enthusiastic, she's getting to know the children already. And that's what the renewed NCSE is about. Essentially that, getting to know the children and schools. Again, an overview of school here in Dublin, Powerstone Education National School, and again, offering tremendous leadership at local level in terms of promoting communities of practice, but additional support being invited from the NCSE and feedback there for you in terms of today when create. The NCSE team advisors were A1 for D15 autism class communities of practice. And that's our job, to do it and to support innovative practices within schooling communities. Further afield within the political landscape, and again, from a variety of feedback from Department of Education colleagues, from political representatives, from the advocacy groups, again, an endorsement of the visiting teacher service being provided right around the country itself. I've shared with you quite a quick whistle-stop tour in terms of how we're delivering the transformation programme for the organisation. And again, it was built on the three key facets of looking ahead, what will the vision, what will the future of special education look like in this country in 10 to 15 years' time? That meant we had to go out and ask. We had to ask both with parents and with schools, with stakeholders, right across the system, what do you want, what do you need from us? And we had to ask even more difficult questions of ourselves internally. Deborah shared with us there an example of Avicino being rude to a parent. That is unacceptable for us. That will not be acceptable within the organisation going forward. They are professional standards in line with the quality service standards that we will be implementing to the highest possible standard. And again, in terms of moving forward, delivering the transformation is quite easy in many regards, to define it, but to deliver it. And again, we will be delivering it on it. We have a vision that excites us, motivates us, day in, day out. But we will have to completely energise that and supplement it with copious energy, integrity and inspiration. We can never lose sight. We are here to add value to the lives of students, families and schools, and we have to continually do that. The only way we can do that is by, and we are fortunate to have a brilliant skill set within the organisation, is to continuously harness the creativity, innovation and talent that we have with staff. Our processes have to be agile and flexible to respond to the needs and demands of the sector, and continually doing that. And ultimately, as an organisation, at every line of responsibility right throughout the organisation, we do have to take due responsibility for delivering on our vision. And ultimately, we have no issue of being held accountable for our delivery of results, but not only do we want to deliver results, we want to deliver outstanding results and actually sustain ourselves in doing so. All of this activity we would have collated. We very much took stock of Deborah in terms of the communication profile of the organisation itself. And in recent times, we have been shortlisted for the Lean Business Awards for Ireland. And again, that took place recently, and it was indicative of the work that we have been doing in recent times in terms of the compiling the delivery of our transformation programme, and then focusing in on the applications of total equality management to our refined processes that I've just shared with you. But again, it's a significant achievement for the organisation, but again, we can't rest on our laurels. And in terms of not resting on our laurels, a continual question we ask, particularly at senior management level within the organisation, are we living true to our values? Are we completely aligning ourselves to them day in, day out? Are our decisions aligning completely to them? And again, as an organisation, our inherent value is that we're person-centred. Are we ultimately focusing on inclusion, and are we aligning those? And again, those quite complex and intricate questions asked of us today. And again, are we ensuring that every decision we're making in the organisation, as is the research gathering today, is it evidence-informed, expert-led, and very much enshrined in communication and collaboration to making the best decisions for supporting young children in this country? And again, we have to remind ourselves at all times our focus is to provide a caring, responsible, reliable servants to students, parents and schools. We cannot lose sight of that. Just maybe scoping that a bit deeper and going into some of the discussions that were touched on this morning. Our work is constantly informed by talking and listening to young people and families. The closer we get to young people and the families, the more enriching, the more rewarding, and ultimately the more sustaining our work is. Now, both children and the families themselves, they all tell us they want to be much more than just integrated or simply included. They want more than be inside in a special school or in a special class placement or in mainstream. They actually want to be recognised and to belong. Ultimately, there's a rich lesson for us there, because our service endeavours then to strengthen inclusive practice so that schooling communities are quite simply places where students belong. No, what does belonging mean? Lonnie and Deborah and Lisa have given us insights this morning of what belonging could look like and feel like. And again, the benefits of the research practice today, we're bringing together leading practitioners in their individual schools, leading practitioners at national level and international level in terms of giving us insight in terms of what belonging looks like. From an NCSE perspective, we're continuing to learn and develop from the American academic Eric Carter. And again, he has done extensive, and his teams have done extensive research in it in terms of what belonging actually means. And again, it's a compilation of the extensive work they've done for quite a number of decades with students and families. And the research says, we belong when we are present, invited, welcomed, known, accepted, supported, cared for, befriended, needed, valued. Present, invited, welcomed, known, accepted, supported, cared for, befriended, needed, valued. Is this possible? Is it possible in Irish schooling communities? You bet it is. And again, some key messages, and again, the parents and young students will tell you this. Presence is the place where belonging can begin. It's the starting point, not the destination. The joy, the benefit of engagement in schooling communities only starts when the enrolment process itself is actually concluded. What does it mean in terms of invitation? And again, belonging only occurs when a person is invited and receives a personal invitation, is thought out and actually pursued. And again, that means dynamic, active schooling enrollment policies, welcoming students, and then welcoming and nurturing them through all aspects of the journey of the specialist placement. Deborah touched on welcoming, that sense of feeling, the sense of empathy in engaging with parents, with schools. And again, welcome is a feeling that has little to do what is said and is more about how they felt within that activity. And again, just going to share with you where welcomes are actually happening in schools up and down the length of this country. One of these schools is St. Aidan's Community School, and they're schools, again, they're across the full length of the country that do extend a hand of welcomes to young children and their parents. This is a school in particular that is their school anthem, and they were invited to the clock tower in terms of the centenary of the celebration for the Department of Education. I think the young children speak for themselves in relation to how they feel welcomed in their school.
Hi, I'm Katie, and we are Michaela from St. Aidan's Community School. Make this place your home. We sing this song, Home, by Philip Phillips, all the time at St. Aidan's. It is our school anthem. We have the words, make this place your home, written on our school floor. We sing it because we are a school of welcomes. We are a school of kindness. Our students are from families that come from all over the world. All have made St. Aidan's their home. At the first Christmas, a family travelled from afar. No one would help them or give them a place to stay. We thought that by giving this song a Christmas flavour, it could teach us a valuable lesson here in Ireland about the importance of looking after each other, making everyone welcome, and making sure this Christmas is a time where no one is alone and everyone has a home. Thank you.
Some of the most profound questions in special education are indeed complex, but perhaps sometimes the answers are immediately in front of us. That tremendous young student there gave us an insight in terms of making everybody welcome. Those probably define a certain layer of simplicity for it, notwithstanding the complexity that's associated with it. But the true benefit of equally welcoming students and their families to schooling communities does go a long way. Lauren posed a really revealing aspect of student identity for us this morning. Student identification, like what a weird way to be diagnosing students for their deficits, disabilities. Surely there's a better way of doing that. And Lauren did share with us the extent of that. Now, in terms of belonging and the research behind that, it's all about students being known for their strengths, their personalities and talents, not just their labels, that they're known by names and not solely by their struggles. They're known by their strengths and gifts and passion. Now, take it a step further, is acceptance. Now, real acceptance, and again we've seen this, the length and breadth of the country, Real acceptance comes from being known personally and not just being known about. It is truly knowing about the full student profile, their learning needs, their learning strengths and their learning capabilities, and taking the appropriate measures with a view to supporting that. And again, support is multifaceted, it is complex, but it is very much centred on being welcomed without conditioned, being treated like family and embraced for who you are. And the pastoral care systems, again, in many, many schools, reinforce this day in, day out. Moving into cared for. Now, again, when cared for is done well, right across the education and contributory systems to the education system, when young students and their families are flourishing in education, the workplace, and being honoured in society for the treasured benefits and strengths they bring, that's when you're really into an enhanced and deep level of being cared for. Step further, for needed, and again you're into the higher order of actually belonging itself. When others in the school community see us as bringing contributions and talents that benefit and enrich the entire schooling community, and that's ultimately where everything must lead to in terms of if we're really talking about degrees of inclusivity across our education system. And again, belonging are the simple key messages we must be imparting to young students. Your voice matters. We learn from you. You enrich us. You make society richer. We need you. And again, simple messages, again, in the sense of you are valuable. You're a valuable part of this schooling community. You're as valuable as anyone else. You are respected by those around you. And again, I'll just share with you a clip of a student, again, feeling belonging in his schooling community. A tremendous contribution from young student Kyle at our 20th celebration. But again, so powerful that I felt it's appropriate to just share briefly with you now.
Ever since I was a young boy, I was able to see that the world was different in so many ways. And I myself was among the masses deemed different. When I was about 6 years old, I started attending a special school in Phoenix Park. It was a bit of a rocky start for me and my parents adjusting to this. Even the logistics of getting there were a problem. In the past, maybe some people like me did never really succeed at school or didn't make the progress that they could have. But I stand here today no different than the 6-year-old I was in special school. I'm still me, still different, but I stand here today with ambition. I'm in mainstream school, ready to do whatever I want. I sit beside people who want to be doctors, astronauts, tradespeople, and sporting heroes. Fun fact, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was younger too. I may not be now, who knows? I have no rocket, but I know that I'll reach the stars someday. What is it that I experienced in school that helped me be the person that I am? What helped me to overcome any barrier and believe that I can do anything? What is it that you need to hear to tell people in education to do so that more people like me can dream, succeed, and believe, and that more parents can dream, believe, and see their children succeed? My third-class teacher taught me how to write and showed me the power of words. My fourth-class teacher gave me the confidence to sing. My fifth-class teacher taught me to run the distance. My sixth-class teacher, during COVID, helped me believe that being different was my superpower, and I stopped worrying about it then. By the time I got to first year in secondary school, I wasn't scared to be the real me anymore. My English teacher and our school librarian in first year helped me publish a book. In second year, my music teacher put me on stage in front of 500 people. I sang, I did it my way. And the best line was, I faced it all and I stood tall.
Dream, succeed, and believe. And again, Kyle just shows us that there are students the full length of this country that are actually dreaming, succeeding, and believing. They're only doing that with the immense leadership and excellent teaching and learning and ancillary supports that are going into our schools right around the country. And again, within the NCSE, our ambition is to enable, to extend that sense of believing, succeeding and believing right across the country from so many more students like Kyle. And again, to enable that their horizons of belief and achievement are continually being enhanced and extended. This morning's gathering from a research conference again greatly feeds into our deliberations and ongoing work for the NCSE. We have delivered quite a significant reform and transformation in the last 2 years, but we're only at the start of our journey in terms of really bringing viable, dynamic impact to delivery of special education services in this country. Thank you very much indeed.